So, the saddest crime trend I have seen in Japan is currently in full swing. From thefts to some very scary and horrendous situations, I'm talking about the gray crime wave, which is a recent rise of the elderly committing crimes to seemingly escape loneliness or poverty by going to prison. The statistics are wild, but first, let's talk about one of the scarier events that put this on a lot of people's radar, which very much involves threats to convenience store employees with a chainsaw. It shocked me too. Little known fact, but that is a big fear of mine, is being threatened with a chainsaw. Don't do that. Anyway, it's probably very obvious that this issue is heavily tied to Japan's aging population due to the country's declining birth rate. Over the past 20 years, the trend of elderly people committing crimes so that they can go to prison to escape loneliness or financial issues has grown and grown until the point where first, of course, the name, the gray crime wave, was coined, and even to the point where there is now a prison specifically dedicated to the elderly. It's called Onomichi in Hiroshima, and it has handrails to assist people walking around. Most of the inmates are provided with walkers, canes, or wheelchairs. It's the place where many of the elderly Japanese people reoffend minor crimes to go back to. It's a regular old people criminal party in there. But we will get to that later. First, the horror movie adjacent crime that brought this issue to many people's attention that took place almost 20 years ago. Cherry blossoms are blooming, spring is in the air, it's April 2006 in Ibaraki Prefecture, and harmless-looking 70-year-old man Yasumasa Matsuzaki is loitering and reading magazines in a local convenience store, as he often does. This time, 3 hours pass and Matsuzaki never buys anything. So, not knowing the powder keg that they're about to ignite, one of the employees asks them to leave if they're not going to buy anything. And he does, exits the store, but all is not well and good in this Ibaraki convenience store, because just about 5 minutes after Matsuzaki leaves, he returns. This time, however, he is wielding a chainsaw. Now, I have scoured the internet for any images of this, but to no avail. So, this high-tech rendering of mine will have to suffice. And rest assured, I am okay to joke about this because there was no Ibaraki chainsaw massacre. This all ended as peacefully as was probably possible. He just threatened the employees and then went back to reading his magazines, feeling assured that now everyone was too frightened to interrupt his good times. Until the police were called and they took him away without incident. Really wanted to read the magazines. Afterwards, the manager was quoted saying he was absorbed in reading. Even after we called the police, he was very scary. And yes, I bet. Anyway, the bizarre nature of this crime captured the curiosity of the masses as well as government officials alike, drawing attention to the exponentially rising number of elderly people committing strange crimes, and people were asking why, the Ministry of Justice included. And the first part of the answer before we get to Japan's loneliness epidemic is Japan's population is just getting older in general because not enough people are having babies. This is Japan's most dire issue possibly ever, and I'll make a whole video on this at some point because the government is freaking out and I'll pin it here. But until then, some quick and frightening statistics to catch you up to speed are as follows. In just the past 20 years, Japan has lost 7 million people. Their population has shrunk because really not enough people are making babies. And of course, thinking logically, the demographic that is shrinking is the youth, working-aged Japanese people and younger, while the demographic that is growing within the population is the elderly, 65 years and over. To put this into perspective, in 2005, the year after Japan hit its population peak, before the population started shrinking, 20% of Japan's population was over the age of 65, which is already a lot compared to America in 2005, where only 12.4% of the population was over the age of 65, according to census.gov. Fast forward to 2023, where now 29% of Japan's population is over the age of 65, with 10% of the population being over the age of 80. If things continue like this, projections put forth by the Japan Times say that by the year 2040, nearly 35% of the population will be over the age of 65. Now, the longevity of Japanese people is great, and we love the elderly on this channel. There is no irony in that statement. The issue pertaining to this topic is that a lot of those elderly people are committing crimes and going to prison seemingly because they may be lonely or facing financial difficulties. And prison, surrounded by your peers with free meals, could seem to be a quick fix to both those issues. Issues that society as a whole should be set up to alleviate, but maybe can't handle on such an unprecedented scale. Anyway, to illustrate that last point and wrap up our little statistics session, that demographic we've been talking about, people over the age of 65, the number of them in Japanese prisons have tripled in the past decade, now constituting over 10% of inmates, which is 4 times the amount of that in the UK. So it is a phenomenon pretty specific to Japan, but what are they all doing? Not everyone is toting around around a chainsaw so that they can read magazines all day. Most of the crimes being committed according to arrest data from 2019 are non-violent property crimes, with 52.4% being shoplifting, 17.6% being robbery, and the rest is violent, with 14.2% being assault. Now, the fact that so many of these crimes were very unnecessary events of shoplifting, coupled with inmate testimony stating that many within this demographic don't have any sort of network of family and friends to speak of to help support them in their old age, is altogether what points to an overarching motive of many of these inmates being loneliness, which is a difficult cause to quantify and nail down. Like, not many people are going to be like, oh, I shoplifted these zucchinis because I was lonely and want to go make some friends in jail. But it's also an important driving force to identify if this issue is going to be rectified at its source. The other driving force is much easier to quantify because it is money, something that the government tries its best to keep track of, which makes this a very clear and dire motive. And I lied, by the way, the statistics session is not over. This whole video is a large statistics session. I see that now, so let's jump right back into it. So, the country's welfare system is struggling with the rising pension burden. Nearly 9 million elderly people live on pension, primarily being Kokumin Nenkai, or Japan's national pension, making it so the government's welfare system is struggling with the rising financial burden. And as a result, just under half of these people that receive money from the government in their retirement have to survive on around 40,000 yen a month, which is just $268.75, and that is a rough budget. When I was a student in Japan and on my tightest budget, I have found places for rent that I could live in somewhat comfortably within that price range. But even like a cup noodle instant ramen diet with what's left over would be cutting it close. Definitely no way to live after surviving in this life for so long. With the issue showing no sign of slowing down or being rectified, it is being addressed by prominent public figures such as former politician Joji Yamamoto, who said prison in Japan is becoming a place for the old and the disabled who have slipped through the cracks of the welfare system. Many end up dying on the streets or committing another crime and landing back in jail. And it's true, arrest records once again show that 80% of these elderly inmates reoffend and end up back in prison within 1 year of their release. And we can't just pretend that it's all just victimless crimes, elderly women casually stealing squash and potatoes, or even chainsaw wielding free magazine enthusiasts. Some of these crimes get as grim as they come, oftentimes victimizing other members of the elderly community, like the Tokyo man described by the police as in his 80s who broke into a Tokyo home and stole 50,000 yen, who was confronted and fought off by the female owner, who was 79 years old and had to fight him off with a glass ashtray. Reporting to police, quote, "I tried as best I could to strike back." Also back in 2005, when the population began to decline, an 81-year-old man ended the life of his wife over an argument about cooking. In the same year, an 87-year-old man ended the life of his bedridden spouse in Nagoya Hospital. And in 2011, a 97-year-old man attacked an 84-year-old with a sword. Luckily, he did survive though. Horrific crimes that are devastating communities, many of which are also suffering from the same welfare and loneliness issues. Obviously, these people cannot be categorized and handled in the same way as our shoplifters. The far-reaching consequences of this epidemic are really shown to be vast when they include examples of crimes committed by the famous and previously wealthy. Like when, in just last March of this year, former Japanese Baseball Hall of Famer Tetsuya Yoneda was arrested for stealing 2 cans of Chuhai, which is a low-alcohol beverage, from a supermarket in Amagasaki City in Hyogo Prefecture. He is 87 years old, and the 2 drinks would have cost him only 303 yen, which is about $2 US. And this man has 350 career wins in his baseball career, which is wild. It's this spectrum of offenses and offenders that really confuse officials such as Yoshihiro Ono, a Ministry of Justice researcher who said, "We have no idea what is causing the rise in elderly crime rate." I feel like we do have an idea, which is almost everything I covered here, but that definitely doesn't mean that any resolution would be at all simple to come by. The country and local government does have many programs that help older people get involved with their community and offer jobs for the retired, such as crosswalk guards, and reallocating government spending from things such as tourism to increase spending on the welfare system is a strong topic of many current politicians in Japan. But it's clearly not enough yet, and as a result, the country has prisons that are primarily repurposed just for housing the elderly, like Onomichi that I previously mentioned, which is almost a symbol of the social safety net failure, where the average inmate is 70 years old and the oldest person is 89 years old, with approximately half of the inmates being repeat offenders. And I can kind of understand why someone might want to go back. If you are someone who would need a caretaker but couldn't afford one, they have steam baths, ramps instead of stairs for people that use walkers. The prison work is tailored to age, such as knitting slippers or sorting leisure magazines. Let's hope our chainsaw man ended up doing that. There's also table tennis and karaoke for you to enjoy with all of your new elderly criminal friends. But for the two older dudes that ended their spouses, I hope they ended up someplace worse. Anyway, there are extensive programs in Japan to help the elderly find work and also get them more involved with their community. However, I do believe that there could be more. What do you think would be good first steps to help these elderly criminals find other solutions to their problems? As always, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and comment. It means a lot to me.